Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Glad you guys are tuning in. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate it. Today is actually a Saturday, so I'm gonna be by myself this morning, and what I'm working on is trying to finish up this framing behind me on this porch. I've got a hip rafter installed, but I don't have any of the purlins on the hip, and I don't have any of the rafters or purlins going back towards the garage. I got to do a little bit of window framing up above the porch before I run that house wrap. So I'm going to get that whipped out first thing, and then it's going to be on to the framing. Now with this framing, it's going to look a little bit untraditional compared to a lot of rafter or hip framing for traditional stick-built structures. However, with a post frame, this is how we do it. It's worked very well with those 2x12 rafters. There's plenty of strength. And then we've got our 2x4 purlins that sit on top of those rafters. And then we're gonna come and put that 5/8 zip sheeting over top of the purlins. First, let's go ahead, we'll put our, basically the bottom cord of our handmade trusses, and what this does is not only it ties in our truss bottom back to the wall, but it'll also create our overhang tail all in one piece here. Now what I like to do is just leave this loose. I'm not gonna screw it down just yet because there might be, you know, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch variance off the wall from perfectly plumb. But what I'll do is I'll mark where I want my rafter to set, just to confirm, see how close we are for plumb on the wall, because if the wall's not perfectly plumb or laser straight from top to bottom, there could be some ins and outs. Could affect how the rafter lays. Now temporarily I'm just toenailing all this stuff, screwing it together with some structural GRKs, but I'll come back in with some hangers as well. Now we've got this rafter here. Should go right over, oh man, that's beautiful, right over top. Look at that. What I can do before I get this thing fully installed, I'm gonna figure out where my valley line is. I'll snap that, then I can measure off of it to determine exactly where that goes. Once again, based on mathematics. You know, the big thing with all of this porch framing, let me come down so I'm not standing here, is hips and valleys. All you got to do is use math. I'm telling you, get yourself a calculator, do the math. It might take a little bit of time the first couple times to get used to, but once you know your common formulas to figure out all these pitches, man, you're going to make your cuts and they're going to be perfect because you used math, which is never wrong, to find everything out. I mean, when I look around at all these rafter cuts, the 412 pitches, the way things fit together, it's perfect, and it goes together without having to really recut things, because you use a tape measure, you read that correctly, you use a calculator, you put the right numbers in, it's going to give you the right answer, and things will go together really well. Obviously there's always a little bit of variables in material, but in general it works awesome. And I'm sweating like crazy. That's 8 foot. 8 foot run, 4-inch pitch, 8.5 3/16. So from this point up the hill, I should be at 8.5 3/16, 2 foot 3-inch 5/8, which was the height from the top corner to the bottom of the roof here. If that's my rise, 4-inch pitch, that diagonal 7.3 3/8. So if I go 7.3 3/8 up the hill, 6.10 7/8 that way, that's perfect, man. Now what I can do, 6.10 7/8 is this dimension. I already know the top of that dimension, 7, 3 3/8. So that gives me my rise and run, 7 foot 3 inch 3/8 rise, 6 foot 10 inch 7/8 run. That's 10 foot 7/16. So if this was in the right spot exactly, I could hook it. It's gonna be really hard to do by myself, so I think I'll come this way. And I'm looking for 10 foot 7/16 from that point right there down this roof. So I can just put my tape measure right into it. 10 foot, I can't even make this stuff up, man. 10 foot 7/16 is literally right there where that is. So that means that is exactly where I want it, right over top of this purlin. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw it in. Man, it's just perfect. That's a 43.49 degree angle. So 43.49 pitch, 2 foot run. So 2 foot 9/16, don't forget that. That's the distance between my purlins up the valley. There. I got to do one more snap line. This one is actually where the tails of my purlins, or the tip of my purlin, is going to go to. Because remember, this snap line way out here is the snap line for the center of my valley. This is for the back side of my purlin where it hits the roof. But what I got to do now is the front side of the purlin where it hits the roof, and then I can put that on that snap line. I can mark every 2 foot 9/16 from the valley, and that's going to give me the point of where they're going to hit. Because when I go ahead and run my purlins and then I put my 5/8 sheeting, I don't want those purlins to come out to this line. When I put the sheeting on, it's going to be elevated that 5/8 of an inch, and then it won't plane into this valley line exactly where I want to. This will indicate where a purlin is going to supposedly land based on mathematics. Let's start putting some purlins on. What I can do is just get a rough idea as to how big these are going to be. I'm going to be on the top side of this dimension. All right, I'll go ahead and cut those, bring them back up, and then they'll be good to install. All right, so let's see if math lies or if Kyle needs to work on his math. 2 foot 2 inch 1/4. That's going to be my run. 43.49 pitch. 3 foot 3/16. I messed this up. I should have known better. 3 foot and 3/16. is where this first one goes. 3 foot 3/16. Then I am 2 foot, what was it? Isn't it like 2 foot 9 1/16? My guess is that's gonna be a lot better. Yeah, that's the plane I want. This is supposed to go right there. Let's go ahead and screw that guy, and then we'll go our 2-inch 9/16 from there. Foot 9 1/16. 2 foot 9 1/16. Two foot 9 1/16. Yeah, baby, that's much better. All right, now it's time to get this fascia installed. And I remember I left this long. Now what I did was I snapped a line between my 2 foot mark over here, which is 10 foot off the wall, which is where it should be. Actually, I marked 1.5 inches shy of that because when I cut this back and I add a 2x6 sub fascia, then it'll be the full 2 foot overhang. But I snapped that line between this tail over here that I've already determined based on math, and that over there, and it got me this point right here. So I squared it down, and then I measured back, and it should be 22.5 from this column. Now I haven't fastened this yet, and that's because at this point, I don't know what's straight until I get this all done perfectly. So now that I have my roof structure basically here, this is super close. It's about a 1/16 off. Now, when I look down this 6x6 cedar, it should be straight if everything is correct. And I would say that is nice and straight. So, I can go ahead, I'll put some temporary screws here to hold this in place, and then it will get a bracket, like a hold down bracket, to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. 8'11", I'm gonna say 8'11" and 1/8, a little bit off. Get that on these big jobs sometimes. An 1/8 inch, you lose it, you gain it. Sometimes you gotta push and pull to get your material exactly where you know it should be. Other times you say it's gotta be, you know, the little bit of air that you have to allow yourself, and it's not worth pushing and pulling it. So where basically that determines is I always try to plumb up the exteriors, like this corner. I want that all perfect, right? And in between there, I do what I can, but when I get to my last one, if everything is kind of perfect where I want it, then sometimes you just got to take that 1/8 inch that you needed and just cut it off, because you might have gained an 1/8 of an inch in a joint. Your cut could have been off a little bit. So I always try to make things perfect, lock them down, and then kind of that last one, you just got to cut where the tape measure says you should be, and just run with it. It'd be nice if this sucker was snug. It's snug, but not enough. I probably should have just cut it the full 8'11 1/4. Shoved it in there, but totally should have left the 1/8 inch on. All right, this should be the last one, and hopefully, if I did it right, I'm hot. One more 60 on me. Well guys, I just didn't have time today to get it sheeted or framed. Honestly, heat's kicking my butt. Hate to admit that, but it's just not necessary. It's the weekend. We had 5 long, hard days, and I might come out here tomorrow. I'm actually leaving on a trip on Tuesday, so I really wanted a lot of this buttoned up, get it to a point where I can leave the guys to do some of the finished stuff, and that way when I get back, anything that we need to do to wrap up, we can do, and I can bring you guys for, you know, that wrap-up video. And definitely, there's still a lot of details to do. So we got these valleys, we got hips, we got how it all ties together. And I hope you guys stick around for that because I think it's going to be awesome. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Definitely turn your notifications on so you don't miss the video. Drop a comment and I'll do my best to answer it. But if you don't already, go check me out on Instagram, where I definitely post a lot more day-to-day stuff, tool info, process info, and just overall, I think, you know, the full gamut of what RRBuildings is all about. And it's a lot easier to whip out your phone and just post it to the gram. So if you haven't already, check that out at RRBuildings. Appreciate it. You guys have a great day. I'm gonna go home and enjoy some of the weekend.